Hello, boys and girls. This is Steve Tripp coming to you live from the Top Strength Project, and this is the Top Strength Cast, a Grit original. I am here to denounce the limitless bullshit surrounding the industry by sharing my own personal experiences and insights in an attempt to offer a more direct, sensible, and authentic approach to becoming the best version of ourselves. Other experts at the top of their fields will be joining me to cover training for and competing in strength sports along with all things muscle. It is my goal to offer as much value through this platform as possible because I believe that there is no cruise control. There is no maintaining. You're either learning, growing, and getting better, or you're going backwards. So wake up, be present, be relentless, and let's go. What's up, boys and girls? We're back. Can you believe it? We're back again. Another episode of the Top Strength Cast with me, your host, Steve Tripp, StripCam. Today, I think it's appropriate to kind of dive into speaking about competing a bit and a lot of the anxieties and nerves and processes that go into competing. This is something that I have some experience in. I've been competing in strength sports for 6 years so far, believe it or not, which is kind of crazy that it's been that long and also that short, I guess, depending on how you look at it. I also, played college football at a decent level before then, and there's just been a lot of lessons learned along the way. Just give you some background. I originally started competing in powerlifting. I didn't really have any intention of competing in strength sports at all. I started lifting weights when I was 13, and it wasn't until I opened my first location over on the west side of Providence that I started competing in strength sports, really because I had a few members, one of which was a client of a trainer that used to work with me, and she had interest in competing in powerlifting. She was looking to beat may have been the national or world deadlift record for under 17. I think at the time the record was 205 pounds, and she was looking to beat it in a certain competition. So I kind of said, hey, I'll do it with you. Let's both do it. So a group of us from the gym ended up competing in an SPF powerlifting meet. I ended up winning my class. I didn't win best lifter because, interestingly enough, and again, I wasn't exposed to powerlifting really at all at the time. I'd never done it, but I was in the open class, and I actually the way the flights were organized, the heaviest lifters went last, and I was strong enough. My openers were strong enough to put me in the last class, and I was actually the only raw lifter in that class. So it was me and all the geared guys, which was kind of a treat, just to kind of be a part of all that, especially never being exposed to the sport. I was able to win my class, but I didn't win the overall best lifter because, like I said, interestingly enough, in the SPF, the open class is the open class. So my total went into the Wilks right along with the geared guys' total as well. And, I obviously wasn't able to squat what they squatted. I think, I may have squatted in the mid fives, benched 425, and deadlifted 675. I'm pretty sure the guy that won the overall, he was a geared guy, multiply. I think he might have squatted close to 9. He had, maybe a low 5 bench, and he had like a 550 deadlift. The suit doesn't help a whole lot in the deadlift, but his total was obviously bigger than mine, so he ended up winning the overall. But after that experience, I was kind of like, shit, I guess I'm a powerlifter now, and that kind of community continued to grow in the original location. And a similar story, a trainer that was working with me was a competitive strongman, and he had a show coming up in New York Strongest Man. This is back in 2017. And he was like, could I wear my Top Strength gear? Could you sponsor me? Are you guys going to come? And I was like, dude, I'll do it with you. And we ended up doing New York Strongest Man. That's where I met Todd, the state rep down in New York. He owns New York Strong. Such a great guy. He and I become very close. But I ended up winning that show in the heavyweight division. I won New York Strongest Man 2017, and that was such a great experience. We'll probably talk about that in a later podcast. But then I guess I said, hey, I guess I'm a strongman competitor now. I went on to compete at nationals that year, 2017, and that's when I sustained this injury to my left elbow. I broke my left olecranon, which is the proximal portion of the ulna, I believe. And I broke it clean through. I had no idea it was broken at the time. It wasn't because of adrenaline or any other reason. I mean, it wasn't a painful break. I fell carrying a sandbag, and I landed on my arm, and I'd broken my olecranon. I didn't know that it was broken. I actually was either in second or third place at the time going into the final event, which was a stone over bar, which is a great event for me. I've always had a bit of an affinity and ability towards stones, and it was a 360 AMRAP in a minute, I believe, and I'd hit 5 in training. And because I was in second or third place, I was in the back of the order, and there was 50 guys in my class or so, and I'm watching, and guys are getting 1, failing. A couple guys got 3, a couple guys got 4, and I'm standing there, and my arm was hurt. It hurt to extend it, but I was pulling on it and pulling, and I'm like, I can fucking swing this event. And I'm in the back of the line, and my friends that I was with got me dressed up, got me tacked up, and I was feeling pretty confident. And I went up and went down to grab the stone, confident I was going to be able to get 5, maybe even 6 reps in that atmosphere. And I just I had nothing. My arm was a lot worse than I thought, and I ended up flying home from Detroit. I got an X-ray the Wednesday after that weekend and found out that my olecranon was completely broken. I ended up needing surgery. I got 10 screws and 2 plates put in, and my arm's never been the same. I still don't have use of my tricep. That's been quite a process and a journey over these last 5 years. Hoping to get some answers soon after getting some EMG testing and biofeedback testing to test the nerves. And turns out there's a pretty good chance I have a pinched nerve in my C6 vertebrae, among some other issues that may be in my neck that's preventing my ability to contract and build and strengthen my left tricep, which has dramatically affected my ability to press over the last 5 years. It's been a real pain in the ass, pain in the elbow, really. Well, not painful. I shouldn't say painful. It was very painful for the first year and a half after the injury, but it's not painful. It just doesn't fucking work. It hurts my feelings more than anything, really. But to continue on, I continued to compete, even though I really haven't had much use of my left arm. Like I said, it's dramatically affected my bench press. I'm back up around a 400-pound bench press, but I haven't been able to get much higher than that. And my overhead is just trash. I had probably a 350 log, 350 axle clean and press. I wasn't the best overhead presser, but I was competitive in overhead until this injury. And now with a barbell or an axle, because of the biomechanics of the movement, I can leverage a lot of leg drive. I can still overhead press an axle or a barbell, in the low 300s. In order to be competitive, I have to be over 400. But my log, that neutral grip, is just pathetic. It's fucking embarrassing. I honestly, have to talk to myself in my brain to prevent from having an adult temper tantrum every time I train the log, or even dumbbell overhead pressing. It's just really, really lacking. I could probably barely get between 220 and 260 on a log now, barely and inconsistently. So hopefully I'll get ahead of that. But regardless, I've continued to compete in both powerlifting and strongman. I leave probably 100, 150 pounds on the table in powerlifting, not being able to bench. But I'm still, around a 2,000 pound total, which has been enough to win all of the powerlifting meets I've done. I did 2 or 3 in the SPF, and I've done another 4 or 5 in the USPA. And I've won best lifter in my class in just about all of them. I've won my class in all of them. I missed best lifter in a couple. And I've also continued to compete in strongman, where I've won New York actually 4 times. 17, 19, 21, 22. I won Massachusetts twice, Maine once, Connecticut once, and I've won Rhode Island 4 times. I actually haven't lost a competition aside from taking second at a competition in Massachusetts, Clash of the Titans, my buddy Eric's gym. That was a very, very, very competitive competition. It was great. And in all these competitions, I've had to actually zero or place close to, if not dead last, in the overhead in every single event. But I've been fortunate enough to be successful enough in the other 4 events that I've been able to win. I haven't gone back to nationals yet, even though I've qualified every year. And I keep qualifying for these big shows, but I'm not going to show up without an overhead. I'm fortunate to have enough to, sweep or come close to sweeping the last 4 events in all these strongman competitions after, zeroing or losing the overhead, but that's not going to be enough in a big show. It's not going to be enough. This year, Nationals has kind of an odd implement overhead. It's a medley. It's a sandbag. I have a 225 sandbag to a 250 keg to a 250 sandbag, which is lighter than the traditional overhead events. Usually you're looking at a 300 plus log or axle, which is kind of out of my price range. But I saw these events and I said, you know what, maybe I can fucking pull this off. And I started training the sandbag and keg about 6 months ago. And to be completely honest, a 100-pound bag, 120-pound bag for 3 to 5 reps was about all I had with really unconvincing lockouts. I probably wouldn't get the call in a competition. And keg is okay because my left hand doesn't have to do a ton of my left arm doesn't have to do a ton of work, where it's on the top of the keg, if that makes sense. And I only have to press a little bit where my right arm does most of the work there. So I've been training it, relentlessly, doing the absolute best I can, and I'm very, very close. I'm 2 weeks out from Nationals. Myself and probably 6 or 7 other guys from the gym and girls from the gym are 2 weeks out from Nationals, and I've just about hit comp weight in that event. I've hit the 250 bag by itself, but not in sequence. So I'm hoping to not only be able to participate in the overhead this year at Nationals, but actually be competitive. I'm very, very close. And I can't wait. And that kind of leads into the point of this podcast is I wanted to get this out, not only for all the listeners, but for the crew, the members of the Top Strength Brigade that are all rolling into this competition. This is a conversation I've had with myself, and yes, I do talk to myself, and I've had it with many clients and friends that have competed either alongside me or if I've prepared them for competitions on their own. They have a lot of questions on how to deal with anxiety and nervousness and what to eat the day before, the day of, the morning of, during and after, how to feed themselves, what's the best course of action, and just how to manage all the stresses that come along with competing. So I wanted to get this out there and share it with you guys, and I hope it provides a lot of value. These mental processes and techniques and kind of approaches that I've taken have served me very well in my short time competing in strength sports, and I think it's valuable. I think it can help a lot of people. So I hope this is valuable to you guys. So let's get right to it. Number one, let's just talk about nerves. And being nervous and having anxiety leading up to a competition. That's always the biggest question. I'm so nervous. How can I manage, these nerves? And my answer is, well, you should be nervous. If you're not nervous, you probably shouldn't be competing. I get fucking nervous. I'm so nervous. I'm 2 weeks out and I'm so fucking nervous. I'm nervous before every competition. And that's because it's important to me. I want to be successful. So you should be nervous. But you also could be nervous because you're not prepared. And if you're not prepared, that's your own fault, especially when it comes to strength sports, powerlifting, you know the lifts, squat, bench, deadlift. And if you haven't been preparing and you haven't done everything you can to set yourself up to be successful, that's your own fault. Same thing for strongman. You know the events 6 months, 4 months or more, you know the events way ahead of time. So you should be prepared. So if you're nervous because you're not prepared, that's your own fault. If you're nervous because it's important to you, well, you know what? I see that as a tool. I see that as something that can be helpful. Realize that, those nerves can serve you as long as you kind of go through some mental processes to be able to work through those nerves and those anxiety before game day. So let's talk about some strategies to do that. For one, visualization is such an invaluable tool, not only visualizing being successful, but also visualizing failing first. So, let's say leading up to the event, let's say we're about a month out or let's say 2 weeks out. I like to go through and visualize every possible thing that could go wrong. So let's say if we're in a strongman competition and I have the medley, the overhead medley I just described to you. So I'm going to go through in my mind that I'm going to mentally process and mentally visit that event. And I'm going to picture myself being there and maybe muffing the first sandbag, missing the first lift. And I'm going to go through that and process that in my mind as many times as I need to be able to get through it and live that moment in my mind. Dude. Now, why would I do that? Because the likelihood of that happening is just as good as it not happening. And the thing is I don't want to have a panic attack in the middle of the event. You know, it's a timed event. I want to get done as fast as possible, and I need to be prepared if something goes wrong. So that if in the event something does go wrong, I can take a deep breath, center myself again, reach down, and hit the bag, and still complete the event. It's not over. You know, anything can happen in strongman, and even if it doesn't go perfectly, I still want to set myself up to get as much points as possible. So if I muff the first one, I want to reach down. I want to be able to calm myself, take a deep breath, and focus, and still complete the event to the best of my ability. Same thing with any other event. You know, processing through squat, bench, and deadlift for a powerlifting meet. You know, I want to visualize and mentally process me missing my first squat, getting called for depth, whatever it may be. I have to go through that in my mind and process that in my mind before the day, so that if in the event it does happen, I can be poised and confident and in control of my emotions in that moment, and I'll know what to do. I also think going through, you know, visualizing failure and every possible thing that can go wrong beforehand can help kind of filter through and help you work through some of those nerves and the anxieties you may have going into it. Because if you don't, you know, come game day, if something goes wrong, you're going to be fucked. And also your nerves and anxiety is still going to be very high, where processing and visualizing failure can help mitigate some of that. So I take as much time as necessary. I go through each event and I think of all the things that could possibly go wrong. And over the course of a couple days or however long it takes, I visualize and process everything that could possibly go wrong, so that I'm in a position to be able to bounce back. You know, the event's not over, the day's not over if something goes wrong, because things will go wrong. Very, very rarely is everything going to go to plan on game day, unless you have a horseshoe up your ass, which most of us don't. So once I process and I visualize all the things that could possibly go wrong, then I can start visualizing being successful, all right? And this is the bread and butter. This is the show. There's been tons of studies done to validate these theories, one of which that sticks out is free throw shooting. So they had 3 groups. These 3 groups all lined up and shot, say, 20 free throws. And then over the next week, one group continued to practice free throw shooting for an hour a day. They'd go and take shots for an hour a day. The second group never touched the basketball, but they were instructed and guided through visualization of shooting free throws and visualizing successfully hitting free throws for that week. And the third group did nothing. And interestingly enough, at the end of that week, when they retested, groups 1 and 2, the group that actually practiced and shot free throws every day, and the group that just visualized shooting free throws every day, both improved by close to 30%. Let me say that again. The group that actually practiced the act of shooting free throws and the group that just thought about it, never touched the basketball, but thought about it, visualized shooting for that week, both improved close to 30%. And of course, the group that didn't do shit didn't really improve much. So let's think about that. Let's think about the importance of visualization and visualizing being successful and going through all the cues in your head, putting yourself in that scenario mentally and working through it, along with your preparation, along with your training, along with your actual application of practice. If you do both what group 1 and 2 did, you're going to set yourself up for success in a big way. Just one or the other isn't enough. You have to do both. So visualization is an invaluable tool. For one, to help work through your nerves and work through your anxieties. Second, to set yourself up so that if in the event something does go wrong, you're prepared and you'll be able to rise above and stay focused and get right back on track. And third, when you visualize being successful and actually going through all the cues and all the processes in your mind mentally before actually executing on the day, it's going to benefit you in a great way. Like I said, those free throw shooters, the ones that didn't even shoot and just thought about it and visualized for a week, still improved 30%, the same margin that the group that actually practiced free throws did. So pretty amazing stuff. The next thing I want to talk about is managing adrenaline, managing your excitement. You see it a lot in the gym setting. People get really hyped up. They yell, they scream, they grunt, they slap themselves. They get all fucking fired up. They make their eyes pop out of their head. More often than not, I think it's fucking fake. I think they're just acting like a fool, trying to draw attention to themselves so they can be like, wow, that guy's fucking nuts, But I think more often than not, it's bullshit. But many people do. They go to a dark place. They go to an angry place, and they leverage that. They leverage that adrenaline, that angst to help compete and help execute a lift. And it serves some people well. It's a tool just like anything else. But I think we need to realize is that comes at a cost. It's fucking exhausting. And I see it all the time. And I actually experienced this personally when I started playing football in college. So we'll go into a little story here. So as many of you guys know, I played high school football, and the summer before my senior year in high school, I fell asleep at the wheel coming home from work, 3:30 in the afternoon. There wasn't any drugs or alcohol involved. I got sick. I got mono for the second time in 6 months, and my tonsils got so big that I had to get an emergency tonsillectomy, and I ended up going right back to work. I still had mono. I probably should have rested, but I had no interest in resting. I wanted to get back to work. I wanted to continue doing captain's practice for football for the upcoming season, my senior year season. I was very interested in lifting weights, so I was going to keep lifting weights, and I just got my license. So I was building condos in Canton, Mass. So I had a pretty full schedule. I was working 40 to 60 hours a week building condos in summer, in the heat of the summer. I also had captain's practice. I was also lifting. And I was also partying my ass off all the weekends. Long story short, I made it 2 weeks. I'd been dozing off at the wheel every day going to and from work. I'd doze off in the morning, wake up at the end of the lane. Oh, fuck, come back. But the second Friday, I fell asleep at the wheel coming home. I went to the other lane on 140 in Norton, and I hit a kid coming the other way. And I was crushed. I was in a 92 S10, no airbag, and I was completely crushed. He was in a newer model Nissan Sentra. He was safe. He had an airbag. He didn't sustain any serious injuries, so I was very, very lucky in that sense. So me being as irresponsible and selfish as I was to continue to work when I should have been resting, it really only cost me, luckily. But I shattered my jaw, hyperextended my right elbow, dislocated my right shoulder. I broke my right femur, broke my right ankle, broke my left foot in 4 places, four metatarsals, and I broke my left ulna and radius in 2 places. So I was pretty banged up, and the idea of playing college football like I had originally intended at the time didn't really seem like it was a possibility. But I ended up getting back in shape, and I ended up walking on my sophomore year and playing football at Bridgewater State. Not a super competitive school. It was Division III, but I was still very excited, and I'll never forget it. My first and second game, I was in warm-ups, and I was just fucking lighting it up. I couldn't have been more excited. The band and the stands were jacked, and I was in my sick uniform, and I was like, dude, I'm playing fucking college ball, So during warm-ups, I was so lit, running around like a maniac, just lighting people up. It's like I was in the fourth quarter of a game, just 100% effort, just maxed out. And I was on special teams, so we kicked off, and then I played defensive end, so I lined up, for the first series of plays, and 30, 45 seconds into the game, I was fucking exhausted, and I was in shape. I was definitely in shape, but I had totally exhausted myself being so excited. I think the physical work I was doing, applying my best effort and going as hard as I could in my drills wasn't so much what fatigued me as much as me just being so up, so lit in my mind and so full of adrenaline that, 5 minutes into the game I was spent, and I got 4 quarters to play. So keeping that in mind, when you're doing especially in strength sports, powerlifting meets, strongman meets, powerlifting, you got 3 lifts, 3 attempts at each lift. It's going to be at least an hour and a half per lift or more. So you're looking at a 3 to 5 to 6 hour day. And then strongman, you have 5 events, same shit, 5 events, at least an hour per event, at least, sometimes longer. You're looking at a 5 hour day. So you approach the overhead, the first event, you're all fired up. You're all, taking salt, slapping yourself. You had a gram of caffeine. You're going to bust your nut in that first event. You got 4 events to go, man. And the events really only get heavier. Typically in strongman, the events are ordered the most complex and technique-oriented ones first, and then they kind of get heavier and heavier as you go. So you got a long day. It's very, very important to learn the skill of managing your adrenaline, managing your energy, being able to, get up for the 30 to 60 seconds you have to execute each event. But then you got to come down. You got to chill out. You got to chill. You got to relax. You got to focus on getting your heart rate down, taking your breaths. There's a bunch of people everywhere. There's a bunch going on. The spectators, the crowd, the judges, the other athletes. Maybe you've reconnected with a bunch of people you haven't seen since the last competition. Everyone's there to see you. Everyone wants to talk to you and see how you're feeling. Get you all fired up, dude. You got it. You got to get away. You got to relax. You have to get your heart rate down and chill and recover and don't waste energy before the next event and the event after that and the event after that. If you want to be successful and you want to last the whole day, it's not just your nutrition and it's not just how in shape you are. Don't let adrenaline and getting all fired up fatigue you a ton. There are those. I forget what video game it was. There's a bunch of them where, your guy has like superpowers, or there's like an adrenaline button where you can hit it, and he has like superpowers for a short period of time. But if you do it too long, he loses life. It's the same concept with adrenaline and your energy. You have to be able to manage that. And I've actually had people approach me a handful of times at events, and like, dude, how are you so chill? You're so relaxed, and I tell them, I'm like, this is intentional. I am taking deep breaths. I am focusing on my heart rate, trying to get my heart rate down in between events. And then as the event comes up and I start to get warmed up, I still try and stay calm. But as I'm approaching the platform, as I'm approaching the event area, I can feel my heart rate go up. I can feel myself get tight. I can feel myself get excited. And that's something that I've learned to do over time with experience. It's a very conscious effort in order to manage that, to be able to be docile and calm in between events and not expend too much energy, and then be able to turn it on for that 30 to 60 second piece and then come back down. It's so important. So being able to manage that is huge. And also, I just don't think it's the best course of action to rely upon adrenaline, to rely upon anger and getting all psyched up to be able to perform, because that's not always going to be there. It's not always going to be there. So rely instead upon your training. Rely instead upon your preparation. Be confident in that. There's no need, or hopefully there isn't a need to always leverage getting all fired up and angry and needing adrenaline to be able to be successful and hit those big lifts and execute. It's a great tool, but like I said, it's not always going to be there. So relying upon it, I think, is going to be detrimental to your success. Okay, so managing your adrenaline, managing your energy is super important. And that's a conversation you can have with your friends and family who are there to support you. Just be like, if I seem a little standoffish in between events, be like, I need to chill, and they'll understand. They're there to watch. They're there to support you. So you guys can catch up and talk about the day afterwards. Let's talk about nutrition. All right, food. So, there's a bit of individual bias on this. Many of you guys and girls are cutting weight to make weight for the competition. And if you're fortunate enough to be able to weigh in an hour before, not an hour, usually a 24-hour weigh-in, you can weigh in 24 hours, especially if you've done a pretty hard cut. You have 24 hours to refuel if you don't have to cut weight. The same rules apply for me. When you're coming up to a competition, stay on plan. Stay on your diet. I think a mistake a lot of people can make, especially after cutting, but even if they're not cutting, is they'll kind of go off plan and maybe go out to eat and eat a bunch of high calorie, high salt garbage that they don't normally eat. And the challenge with that is maybe these foods won't digest well. They may cause gastric distress. You have this big, disgusting food baby sitting in your stomach. If you go out and hammer down a bunch of shit the night before, you're going to feel like garbage on game day, and that's not the best. I do think it's important to increase your calories, increase your salt, increase your carbohydrate intake specifically, after your weigh-in, or the day before. Again, if you didn't have to cut anything to make weight, so I'd recommend eating more calories, but eating more of the same stuff you've already been eating, during your preparation. Just more calories, more salt, more carbohydrates. If you have a go-to cheat meal that you have eaten in the past, let's say if you had a refeed or a cheat during prep, and your body responds well to those foods. Like, for example, I'm very fortunate that I can digest dairy very well, and I also feel great after Five Guys. So sometimes my go-to meal the night before a competition will be 2 or 3 double bacon with all the toppings from Five Guys and a large fry. Then I'll go to Froyo and have a big, huge pile of ice cream, or maybe a pint or 2 of Ben & Jerry's the night before. But I know that I digest that well. I know it doesn't bother my stomach. If it did, as much as I enjoy it, as delicious as it is, I wouldn't eat it before a competition, because I don't want to feel like shit. And most importantly, after a big meal of something that doesn't digest well the night before, the next morning I'm not hungry at all, because my body's having a hard time digesting and processing that food. So, most competitions start at 9. You got to wake up 6:37, have a big breakfast. You're probably going to be anxious as hell. You're going to have no appetite. And if you ate a pile of shit the night before, that's like a double whammy. You're not going to be able to eat before your competition. So again, the day before, whether you had to cut weight or not, don't go off plan. Just have more of the foods you'll already be eating, so you can load up, make sure all your glycogen stores are loaded, carb loaded up, plenty of salt. I like getting maybe a Pedialyte or 2 down during the day to make sure all my electrolytes are covered. And I think that's the show. You're going to put yourself in a position to be much more successful. And again, to make sure you're crossing all the T's and dotting the I's, if you can have that meal the night before a little earlier than normal, I tend to literally eat like the moment before I go to sleep. If I can get my last meal in, 7, 8 o'clock at night, and then get to sleep, hopefully I'll wake up with a decent appetite the morning of. So let's talk about morning of. So morning of, again, still on plan. All right, I'm not going to go out and eat a bunch of shit. I'm not going to have fucking donuts and garbage that are going to make me feel like a fat, soggy bag of wet dicks before I'm trying to perform and hit the biggest lifts of my life, right? That's what we've been preparing for. So my breakfast is the same. It's the same as it always is, but again, a little bit more of what I already have. So my breakfast every day is 6 jumbo whole eggs, pile of greens cooked over Kerrygold butter, and I usually have 80 to 120 carbohydrates, either from cream of rice or some type of English muffin or bread that digests well. I like Dave's Killer Bread products. They tend to digest well. So morning of competition, I'll do the same thing, but maybe I'll skip the spinach, I'll skip the fiber, and I'll increase the carbohydrates a bit. And also maybe I'll have a couple pieces of bacon, plenty of fat, super high in salt, and maybe a short stack of pancakes. Again, I've had pancakes in the past. I know that I digest them well. It doesn't really upset my stomach at all. And the thing is I tend to have a super high calorie and really try and stuff myself for breakfast, because my appetite's probably not going to be there during the day. So I want to get as much calories in as I can an hour and a half before I start warming up. So that's usually my breakfast. Again, the same breakfast I normally have. I usually take out the fiber to free up some more room for carbohydrates, because carbohydrates are going to be your greatest fuel source during the day. I also try and get a Pedialyte down in the morning as well to make sure all my electrolytes are covered to prevent cramping and getting dizzy, or if it's hot and I'm sweating my face off. You want to make sure you get plenty of electrolytes in to prevent that from happening. I also love LMNT packs. I started using them a few months ago. Those things are the shit. Each one has a gram of sodium, and I forget exactly how much, but it's got some magnesium and potassium in there too. It's properly dosed. Phenomenal product. So I definitely have a handful of those throughout the day, but I try and get a couple salt packs down the day before and the morning of. As far as what I do during, I'm a stim guy. I love my pre-workouts, but I'm usually good for 400 milligrams of caffeine pre-workout. But again, that's a normal training session, an hour and a half to 2.5 hour training session. We're going for 5 hours, and there's going to be long breaks in between. So normally what I'll do is I'll do like a third or half of what I normally do for my pre-workout for my first event. And that'll usually cover me for the first 2 events. And then I'll do another half or a third scoop for the second 2 events. This is strongman. We're talking about a 5-event thing here. And then maybe if I need it, I'm going to feel like shit, but I'll do a scoop before the last event, depending on how I feel. Same thing for powerlifting. I'll usually take a half serving where I normally take for the squat and bench, and then normally I'll take another serving for the final deadlift. So overall, throughout the day, I'm probably close to a gram or 800 milligrams to a gram of caffeine on game day, but it's spread out. I'm not going to do, 400 milligrams 3 times or 5 times. It's just I try and spread it out a bit more. Rather than having one heaping scoop or a scoop and a half, I'll do a half or a third spread throughout the day. As far as nutrition, I use intra-workout nutrition. When I train, I do usually a scoop or a scoop and a half of an intra product. Like I love PeriMD from True Nutrition. I've been using that for years. I also love Leg Day from NutriBio. Both of those products, the profile in Leg Day is a little bit better than PeriMD, but I love PeriMD. I love the flavor, and it's got everything I need. It's got HBCD carbohydrates. It's got some electrolytes. It's got a BCAA, EAA spectrum. I believe it has citrulline. I'm probably missing a few things, but it's got some carbohydrate, EAA, BCAA, and a little bit of electrolytes. And then Leg Day adds a little bit more. I believe it's got something in it called estrogen, which helps everything absorb a little bit better. It's got some coconut water extract, some salt, some more electrolytes, but those are my go-to intras. I also usually add a scoop of dextrose as well. I picked that up from Stan Efferding, basically offering 2 carbohydrate sources. He believes that that's, superior just to one, whether it is or it isn't. I mean, who knows, but that's what I do. I do 25 to 50 grams of carbs from the PeriMD or Leg Day, and then I'll add another 25 or 50 carbs from dextrose. So I do the same thing on game day, but instead of doing it in like a liter bottle, I'll probably do a gallon, or maybe just do 2 liters throughout the day. So I have that to drink all day. So I have liquid carbohydrates, liquid fuel throughout the day, and I also use creatine. So I probably put 5 to 10 grams in on a regular workout. So I'll do the same for competition as well. Get some creatine in there as well. And then as far as solid food, I usually do cream of rice. I think cream of rice is fantastic. I used to do oatmeal, but oatmeal is a little higher in fiber and isn't as readily available as cream of rice is. So I usually make a nice big vat of cream of rice, probably 4 servings, so I know I have enough for the day. I also bring honey. I think honey's phenomenal. It's delicious, and it's a very simple bioavailable carbohydrate as well. So I have the cream of rice, which is a very bioavailable, easily absorbable carbohydrate, along with the honey. Maybe put a banana in there. And if I am really hungry, again, between the liquid carbohydrates and the cream of rice with honey and bananas, that's usually enough. But if I need something to kind of be a little more satisfying, I can just use like a tablespoon of coconut oil, something like that, and a nice bioavailable fat that doesn't cause inflammation like peanut butter does. Peanut butter just makes me feel like shit. I love it just as much as all you do. Peanut butter is probably my favorite food, but I really don't eat it because it makes me feel like shit, especially pre-workout. All my aches and pains and just poor energy, as much as I'd love to have a couple tablespoons of peanut butter at any moment, it's extremely counterproductive when I'm trying to perform. So I lean more towards something a little more bioavailable and easily absorbed, like coconut oil. I think that covers everything as far as the nutrition during. So at the end of the competition, I'm all fucking yiped up because I've had a gram of caffeine, and I'm probably physically exhausted, but my brain is wired because of all the stimulants I've had. So usually the appetite isn't there, but I'll usually have some fruit because that's always great, especially after a long day where I've really expended some calories and really worked. I can always have some fruit, some watermelon, mangoes, pineapples, maybe a protein shake or something like that, something quick, something easily absorbed. And also I make sure I'm hydrated. So if I have I'm usually sipping Pedialyte all day, but maybe I'll have a Pedialyte, Maybe I'll have an LMNT pack or two if my appetite's really not there after a long day. I know it should be there, right? Because I've been lifting all day, but it's not. So usually hydrating is going to help my appetite come back. And, after competition, after I compete, that's when I'll go out and have whatever the fuck I want. I'm a pretty disciplined guy, and my taste is, my taste is steak and rice, or maybe a burger. I'm not really in the pizza, and I like sushi, but plain sushi. I just kind of tend to feel like shit when I have things that I don't normally eat. So I usually will go out and just have a big steak, maybe a burger, and really just eat whatever I want, because it doesn't matter how shitty I feel afterwards. The competition's over, and that's when I kind of celebrate. Hopefully I was successful and I won, and I can go out and eat whatever I want. So again, the cheat, the refeed, whatever it is, keep that for after the competition. Stay on plan the day before, the night before, and during, and for breakfast and the day of, because you don't want to eat anything that's going to cause any gastric distress or poor digestion. So that's usually my go-to strategies for nutrition on game day. Just something else to consider, when going into a competition, again, going back to nerves and anxiety and basically all the mental processes that go into a competition. Realize that regardless of the outcome, win or lose, it's back the fuck to work on Monday. I think there's a lot of value in understanding that and accepting that. For one, it might take a little bit of pressure off, Without that thought, you might be going into a competition thinking like it's the end of the fucking world if you lose. It's really not, And you don't lose, okay? You either win or you learn. Failures contain our greatest lessons. So if you go to a competition and you fuck up and it costs you the win, you can go back, you can take a look, you can evaluate. Don't make fucking excuses. Don't blame the judges. Don't blame anything but yourself, all right? Take a look at the failure, see where you went wrong, and fix it, and put yourself in a position to be successful next time. Again, regardless of the outcome, it's back to work on Monday. I think there's a lot of value in accepting and applying that mindset. I think that's just about everything that comes to mind for now when it comes to the mental preparation leading into a competition, during a competition, and also the nutritional strategies I tend to use when competing. I hope that stuff was helpful. Please feel free to leave some comments or any questions down below. I'll be checking these, often enough, and I'd love to respond and get some discussions going about these topics and these kind of procedures and strategies that I use and that I recommend to my clients and friends when getting into a competition. But again, like I said in the beginning, myself and again, I think there's 7 or 8 of us going up to New Hampshire for USS Strongman Nationals. I couldn't be more excited. It's very special to me, obviously, because this is my first national show since the one in 2017 where I broke my arm, and I haven't decided to do one since, because I have no interest in showing up and zeroing the overhead in a big show like this. So where I actually have a shot at this year's overhead event, I couldn't be more excited, and I'm very, very confident. I'm very confident. I think I'm in a position to win. I'm in a position to take it. But of course, with strongman, anything can happen. Anything can happen in strongman. The biggest, strongest, fastest guy is not always the winner. And also, when you think about strongman, you think about the big lifts. You think about massive deadlifts and huge stones and big overhead pressing. But every event is worth the same. Every event has the same value, okay? So in this particular event, we have the overhead medley, which I explained to you. We have a last man standing deadlift, which is going to be pretty epic. My bar starts at 670. There's 50 or 60 guys in my class, so we'll all go through. We have 30 seconds to successfully hit the deadlift, and they're going to go up by 30 pounds. We all go again. Go up 30, we all go again, and it just keeps going. So if you think about that, what makes it kind of special is as the weight gets heavier, our rest period's going to get slower because guys are going to start dropping off. So not only do you have to have some fucking horsepower to hit a big deadlift, but you got to have some gas too, because fatigue's going to start to accumulate, and we're going to be tired, especially when it comes down to 3 to 5 guys. You're only going to have a couple minutes in between attempts. And then the last thing that makes this deadlift special is there's a cash prize for the biggest deadlift of the day. Not the biggest overall, but they're going to use dots. So across all classes, the heaviest relative deadlift is going to win a cash prize. And I think it's $1 per pound. So I was speaking to Chase, and I said, I don't know if there are any other 800-900 pound deadlifters in my class, but if I end up, being able to win my class with, an 800 pound deadlift, can I keep going and kind of hit as big a deadlift as I can to put me in position to win the cash? And he said, after you win your class, you're welcome to take a break, and then you can put on whatever you want for a final attempt to hit the biggest deadlift you can for the cash. So that's my plan. I hope to have enough to win my class and maybe hit something sick. Maybe 880 or 900. I've hit 880 in training, so we'll see if I can pull out something big. 900 would be a pretty big milestone, so maybe I can hit that on the day, but we'll see. The next event is probably the one that's most stressful for me and everyone else. It's a carry. It's a Barry carry. It's kind of like a fire hydrant. And the reason why it's so stressful is it's very light. It's 320 pounds, and it's a short track. It's 25 feet down and back. And why that's so stressful is the difference between first place and 15th place is going to be like half a fucking second. Everyone's going to be probably between 8 and 12 seconds, unless they drop it or totally fuck it up. But the margin of victory in between each place is going to be so small that it's going to come down to the fucking wire. It's going to come down to how attentive your timer is. It's going to come down to having a very aggressive pick. It's going to come down to having a quick turn. It's a very, very delicate event with a lot of variables that I don't like. I would much rather, if it's a lighter carry, I'd much rather it be for a long distance or for max distance. If it's going to be 25 feet up and back, make the thing fucking 450 pounds so that it's heavy and so that we're struggling. And then you're going to have, a couple seconds between first, second, third, fourth, and fifth place, not 0.2. But it is what it is, May the fastest man win. The next event is going to be a max hold. So it's farmer's handles. I think I have 280 in each hand. You just stand there and hold it as long as possible, which is a great event because grip strength is obviously, it's obviously a test of grip strength, but it's also just a test of how bad you fucking want it. I don't care how tough you are, but holding, 250, 300 pounds in your hand, it fucking hurts. The skin folds up, your calluses, it just fucking hurts. So it's really going to be not only the guy that has the strongest grip, but the guy that fucking wants it the most, the guy that can just suffer and keep holding on. So that's going to be a really cool event to see what happens there. And it's also, who knows? Sometimes a very unassuming guy, a guy without, that may not have the most daunting or intimidating physical stature could have some sick fucking grip strength. So it's going to be really interesting to see who pulls that one off. We had New York record breakers a few months ago, and I actually tried this event. They had it there. And I ended up actually having enough to beat the current national record. I think I held it for like a minute 18 or something like that. But that doesn't mean shit. I mean, who knows what's gonna come on the 25th up in New Hampshire, It could go anywhere. And also the implements themselves are a little bit different. They're a little more compact and dense, so it's going to be a different feel. But it's the same for everybody. It's anybody's event, so I'm looking forward to that. And the final event is a stone to shoulder. I have a 305 stone to shoulder. What makes this event kind of special and also frustrating and makes me a little anxious is that there's no tacky. So, what it's going to come down to is, again, the biggest, strongest, most conditioned guy might not pull this off because if he's a sweaty, wet mess, that stone's going to slip all over the place. We can use tacky towels and we can use this liquid tacky that's decent, but it tends to only last 1, 2, 3 reps, maybe. I'm good for 7 or 8 reps in a minute if I can stay hooked into this thing, but we'll see. I gotta work on not sweating, So we'll see. But again, like I said, I'm one of 7 or 8 guys and girls from the gym. The Top Strength Pod is going to have a huge presence this year. It will be televised as well. The name of the company escapes me, but there's 12 lanes, and each lane will be essentially operating as its own competition. So for example, if lane 1 finishes event 1 before lane 5, they go right to the next event, and each lane has its own camera. So for those of you that can't make it, you can tune in. We'll supply the links for you guys so you can watch. But either way, I couldn't be more excited. I couldn't be more excited because of my own personal, reasoning for this being my first national show since my injury in 2017, but also being able to share this experience and everything that's led up to it with, so many of my closest friends who I train alongside with here at the gym on a daily basis is just, it just means the world to me. And also being able to be in a position to sponsor a lane and have a table and have a setup there is just so special. And also, finally, it being in New Hampshire is great because a lot of the times when you travel for shows, there's no fucking equipment to warm up. It's brutal. And you got to warm up for a max overhead event with fucking bands, and you're screwed. But whereas to New Hampshire, it's about an hour and a half drive for me. So me and the boys are going to load up a bunch of equipment, so we'll have everything we need to be able to warm up and put ourselves in a position to be successful. So I think we're coming, man. I got a couple lightweights, got a couple middleweights. I'm a heavyweight. So I think we're gonna put on a great show for everybody, and I can't wait. But that's it for this episode. Thanks a lot for listening, guys. Again, I hope, that insight and those strategies were valuable to you guys. It's definitely my goal to provide as much value through this platform as possible. So I'm going to keep them coming. Keep the feedback coming. Keep the comments coming. Keep the messages coming. I really appreciate it. And I can't tell you how much it means to me that this whole podcast venture has been so well received. Never in a million years did I think that there'd be so many people excited about listening to me bullshit behind a microphone for an hour or so, a couple times a month. So thanks again for the support and the interest. I really appreciate it, guys. And we'll see you around. All right, on to the next episode. Take care. All right, so that just about wraps up today's episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Top Strength Cast. I hope you enjoyed listening to that as much as we enjoyed putting it together. If you did in fact enjoy it, please leave a 5-star review, like, share, whatever it may be to help get the word out. We really appreciate the support. And also your feedback. Your feedback means a lot to me. Feel free to reach out, shoot me a DM directly at StripCam or comment below. Like I said in the intro, it's most important to me to offer as much value through this platform as possible. And it's very helpful in doing that to get your guys' feedback. Let me know what you like, what you don't like, what you want to hear. I really want to provide the best service possible. So thanks again so much for listening. We'll see you guys over there, and we'll see you next week for the next episode. Thanks again.